Welcome to the Signage and Demarcation e-learning module. Section 1. Signs. One of the most effective ways to help make workplaces safe is to install signage and visual markings to raise awareness of dangerous and hazardous areas, and provide general information or directions. A sign displays a distinct message about how to protect workers from exposure to hazards. A sign displaying a safety message carries the same authority as a direct instruction from your supervisor. Disobeying a sign installed on site is a safety breach. Signs notify personnel of dangers, hazards and other information. They must be positioned where they will be seen before a person is put in a hazardous situation. Place signs where they are clearly visible and attract attention. Do not put signs in a position where they create a hazard. Do not place signs on objects that can be easily moved. Messages must be clear and easily read. Signs must be clean and in good condition. Report signs if they are damaged or difficult to read. Signs are classified and designed according to Australian, New Zealand Standard 1319. This standard outlines the different classifications of safety signage and details the color and size required for each classification. Click each of the signs above for more information. Safety signs and visual markings are inspected on a regular basis. Signs, barricades, and barriers should be inspected as part of a pre-start inspection. Ensure that all signage is legible, obvious, clean, undamaged and not faded, placed outside the hazardous area, constructed to meet the requirements of the hazard, or condition. It is an essential part of good housekeeping that all signs, barricades and barrier materials are cleaned, checked and stored, or disposed of after use. Section 2. Labels. Labels are used to make sure that substances, devices, equipment, and systems are easily identifiable and are safely and correctly operated. Labels are required for all electrical control equipment. Hazardous chemicals, electrical switches and circuit breakers, electrical substations, motor control devices, panels for switchgear and distribution boards, isolators and isolation points, critical valves on pipeline systems, and pipelines. Labeling on pipes, conduits and ducts is generally color-coded to identify the contents. Arrows are often included to show the direction of flow. Pipes carrying materials for human consumption are colored blue. The pipes must also have an appropriately colored label attached. In the example of potable water, the pipe will be blue with a green label. Hazardous chemicals are chemicals that pose a health risk or cause irreversible damage to the environment. Hazchem signs must be displayed whenever dangerous goods are packaged, transported, and stored. Containers must be labeled with name of substance, warning sign, dangerous goods class, possible ill effects, and Hazchem label. Workshops and other buildings use colored markings on the floor of work areas to show the boundaries of specific areas. Demarcation zones are typically yellow for walkways, blue for general work areas, gray for storage areas, red for fire equipment, green for electrical gear. Section 3. Physical barriers. A barricade is a device that prevents physical access to an area. Barricades are designed, and constructed according to the requirements of a risk assessment. A barricade can be permanent or temporary and may include fencing, mesh, machine guarding, bunding, barriers, cones and bollards, tape. The barricade must be marked with signage appropriate for the hazard, or condition and anchored to a structure, or have sufficient freestanding strength. Permanent fencing may be erected to confine or exclude people or animals, to define boundaries, to protect assets or prevent harm. Protective fencing must meet national standards depending on the purpose and location of the fence, chain-link fabric security fencing, and gates. Most protective fencing is constructed of chain wire which may, or may not be coated with zinc or aluminium alloy. Plastic mesh is only used as a temporary barrier, and should be replaced with a more permanent barrier if the area is to be restricted for an extended period of time. A plastic mesh barrier must be installed at all access points, be securely fitted, be positioned to provide clear and early warning, display the appropriate signage and information. Rotating or moving parts on plant and equipment are a major hazard that can result in serious injury. All moving machine parts must have guarding installed that meets national standards and be identified with appropriate signage. Exposed moving parts should be painted a contrasting color to make the hazard obvious. Pinch points and restricted access areas should also be marked in such a way as to make the hazard obvious. Safety berms or windrows are designed to prevent equipment from entering a hazardous area, such as the edge of a haul road or a tip head. They are usually constructed of earth and absorb the impact energy if a vehicle hits the berm. In operational areas, the safety berm must be constructed to at least half the height of the wheel of the largest truck working in the area, and extend along the full length of the hazard. A barrier is a device constructed to outline an area of restricted access. A barrier offers minimal physical access prevention, and should only be used in low-risk situations, or as a temporary measure while a more robust barricade is constructed. The barrier should be marked with appropriate signage to inform personnel of the reason for the access restriction. Barriers and barricades are to be removed immediately once the hazard no longer exists. Colored cones and bollards control access to low-risk areas, or are used as a temporary measure to mark a hazardous situation. Cones and bollards must be high enough to be seen by all personnel, constructed or installed so that they will not move or fall over in adverse environmental conditions. Installed at all access points to the restricted area. Installed to restrict pedestrian and vehicular access. Installed no further than 10 meters apart. Cones and bollards may be fitted with signage, or demarcation tape appropriate for the access restriction. Witches' hats are used to mark out restricted access areas or hazards. Witches' hats may be color-coded to indicate a specific purpose. Click the witches' hats above for more information. Demarcation tapes may be used in conjunction with barriers such as bollards or cones. Tapes must be secure, visible, at least 1 meter above ground or floor level and located at each access point. The demarcation tape must be relevant to the restriction. Demarcation tape must have an information tag at each access point detailing installer name, time and date of installation, reason for tape, authorization protocol for passing the barrier. There will now be a short quiz to test your understanding of this module. Disobeying a sign installed on site is a safety breach. Which of the following is not a requirement for signage on site? Which of the following does not require a label? You must remove any safety signs, barricades and barriers as soon as the area is safe.